Aights. Whenever my father was due to come home on leave from the army, I'd be happy in one way, but also fearful in another way. Whenever he came home on leave, he brought lots of things to eat: grapes, apples, tins of biscuits, sweets, new clothes, tinned milk, tinned fish, and all sorts of exotic things. We'd look forward to eating all this. There was always plenty of good food to eat throughout the 2 months that he was at home. But for all the rest of the time, there would be nothing but kuz. Usually we had rice and kazambu only in the evenings. Otherwise, it was some kind of kuz in the mornings and at midday. It would be a kuz appropriate to the season. To go with the kuz there would be something or the other: onions, groundnuts, molded jaggery, green chilies. If there was a little money in hand, there might be a relish of roasted and ground gram, or a pickle from the nutter shop, or anything else we could buy. This pickle was usually hung up in packets in the shops. The shop owners would usually prepare this karruku in their own homes and bring it to their shops. They used to make it full of flavor, with all sorts of good things like brinjals and red chilies. They'd give you 5 or 10 paisas worth, wrapped up in a banyan leaf. To this day, this relish is known as karruku. It always went very well with our kuz. On Sundays we usually had a good meal. They butchered a cow exactly at the time when we returned from the morning pasai. With our midday kuz we would be given 6. A little of the meat in its plain stock. For this, the meat was just boiled with a touch of salt but no masala whatever. Then in the evening there would be rice with a meat curry. On the day when they were cooking meat, we came home as soon as the prayers were over at church, without getting led away into anything else. When the lake was full, the fish that was cheapest was the silibi kenda and the kenda. If they bought this fish and made a curry with it, we never could bear to go to the church in the evening. We could only make ourselves go after we had eaten the fish curry and rice. But there were times when there was nothing at all at home. My mother would somehow manage to relieve our hunger with a little leftover rice or kuz. Every day when we left for school, we'd ask for 2 or 3 pays. This was our daily routine. We never forgot to ask for our spending money, just as soon as we were ready. When my father was in the army, all those wars happened. The Pakistan War, the China War, the Bangladesh War. During those times, he was never able to send home any money. Nor did we ever get any letters. It was my mother who managed to look after us by picking up some coolie work. We'd go to the lakeside in the evenings, pluck some wild greens like kapaikra or thoilukra, and eat it with a quickly stirred and thickened ragi dough. Sometimes we boiled and ate drumstick leaves. During the school holidays, I'd find some work gleaning groundnuts, collecting firewood, picking up dry dung. On occasion we children would finish off whatever gruel or porridge there was. Then it was my mother who had to go hungry. Somehow we managed like this until I got to the 8th class. It was after this that I was admitted into the hostel of a convent in the next village. It was a hostel which demanded quite a high fee. And I felt uncomfortable to stay there, although they fed us well. It was a really big school, too. A lot of children studied there. As for me, at first I didn't at all want to stay and study there. On the other hand, I was too scared to run away home. Before she left, my mother had threatened me that my elder brother would kill me if I ran away from school and returned home. Because there was no other way out, I gritted my teeth and stayed. And gradually, as time went on, everything worked out all right for me. A child from the Tever street of our village joined the school at the same time as me. Within 2 days she ran off home. Both in the hostel and in the school, the children wore all sorts of fine clothes, and they kept nice things to eat in their rooms. So I thought they must all be upper caste children. My mother too had given me some fried groundnuts and puffed rice. I had put this aside for myself. I wondered to myself how it was that children belonging to other communities always had fine clothes and good food. I realized it was they who had the money. As for me, my community was low caste, I had no money either. All the same, I thought, I would study hard and make good. So I worked really hard in my village, taking as evidence my skill at picking out the lice from her hair. My grandmother used to claim that I was going to be a really smart child. And whenever my elder brother wrote to me, he would say, "You have lots of brains, it's as if a palmyra fruit has been thrust into a sparrow's head. Study well and gain lots of marks." And so, gradually, I cared less and less about clothes. I went about my own business, telling myself this was the destiny that was given me. My father, who was still in the army, sent me money every month. He sent me more than I needed for my school and hostel fees. I had enough to buy and eat what I wanted. I was happy enough. On visitors' Sunday my mother would come, bringing cooked beef, or a curry she had made out of a chicken that she had bought and killed. She would also buy me lots of snacks. When she came, she would look through my hair for lice, then plait it for me and put flowers in it before she left. This made me very happy. I was at that school until the 11th class, after which I returned home. Every one had said I would gain good marks in the 11th year public examinations, and I was pleased about this. But then, my parents wanted to stay back home, saying there was no need for me to go to college or to study any further. In any case, there was no money. Then, they said it would be difficult for me to find a husband in my community if I went in for further education. So they wrote off to a few places to find out about teacher training. During those holidays, I went to see a nun who had taught me in the 11th class. She really grieved to think of me sitting at home without studying. She spoke to my mother and made a fuss, complaining that she must not stop a girl who really enjoyed her studies from going further with it. When my mother said that she didn't have the money, this nun made her pawn the earrings she was wearing, then took me by the hand and sent me to a college with the money. And I, firm in the resolve that I would carry on with my studies one way or another, arrived at the college with just the clothes I was wearing, and admitted myself into the hostel. For a whole week I went around in the same skirt, jacket, and Davani. All my classmates looked at me as if I was some outlandish creature. Some of them asked me, did I only possess one set of clothing? Didn't I have any others? I felt deeply humiliated. I told them my mother was bringing my belongings, and I went to the hostel and wept. Meanwhile my father wrote to me from the army, very abusively, you listened to the nun's advice and joined college, so now ask them to give you the money, go on, go to them. I didn't wish to go back home, though. There was this certain something in me which urged me to go on and complete my studies, that's why I endured all the shame and humiliation and stayed on. When they saw my marks, when they realized how alert I was at my work, the teachers and nuns praised me. And a week later, my mother brought me my clothes, my box and my bedding. After this, my classmates began to be more friendly towards me. They were surprised that I got the first mark in all the tests. The teachers also said, look at this one, who joined late, how well she is doing. After this, I didn't bother about clothes and jewelry, and went about my work in my own way. Some of the students asked me, why aren't you wearing anything in your ears and about your neck? You don't even have chat pals on your feet, they said. It was true that almost all of them came to college wearing all kinds of trinkets and with fine clothes. But where would I go for such things? I even pawned my small earrings in order to pay my examination fees. And my clothes certainly weren't anything much. At home, we bought new clothes twice a year. Once for Christmas. Then, for the Chinnamalai festival which was celebrated at the Hill Grotto of Our Lady. Apart from those two occasions, we never bought anything. We had to manage with these two sets of clothes. I began to collect my elder sister's cast-offs. And so I got by for 4 years. In my 4th year, the time neared for the college day. College day was always celebrated on a grand scale. All the final year students were invited to a party, which they attended dressed in silk saris and decked out in their best things. As for me, I didn't have a single decent sari to my name. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to borrow a sari from someone or the other and wear that. And on that particular day, I couldn't take myself away elsewhere, nor would they have allowed me. So at last I made up my mind and went and locked myself up in the bathroom. I wanted to weep and weep when I considered my plight. And I realized how deeply shamed one can be for the lack of a few rupees in one's hand. A friend of mine from a Niker family had said to me, you could have written home and asked them to send you a silk sari. So were there silk saris growing in a garden in my home? She couldn't have known the truth, that there was no one in my home who possessed a silk sari. I could not have asked them to buy me a silk sari either. There was no money to throw away towards the cost of a sari. So I hid in the bathroom until the party was over. It was like that at the institution where I studied for my B.Ed as well. I consoled myself that there were any number of people who were in a worse plight than myself. Once I finished my B.Ed and started to work, life became comfortable enough. It was really good to earn enough money every month and to go about independently and as I pleased. I could buy the sari or jacket that took my fancy and wear it. I could go wherever I wanted to go. I could buy and eat what I liked. I could even have a few pieces of jewelry made for myself. I became aware that if you have a little money in your hands you can gain some authority and status and prestige. And I realized that those who have the cash to spend can always afford to live in comfort. But our people, however hard they toil, never seem to be able to have that cash in hand. They work so hard that they wear themselves out like potsherds. They live on gruel every day, they wear nothing more than a couple of rags, they own neither property nor land nor even a decent house to live in. In such conditions they work, and only for the good of the rich. How can they even hope for luxuries? Even I could, in the end, contrive to live a life of moderate comfort. I realized that if only the children on my street acquired a little education and found jobs, then they too could live reasonably well. But then, how are they to educate themselves? The struggle to fill their bellies is their main struggle, after all. It was this train of thought that led me to the foolish desire that I could become a nun and enter a convent, and in that way work hard for other children who struggled as I had done. There was a desire in my heart to help other children to better themselves, as I, born into the same community, had been able to do because of my education. I really wanted to teach such children. But I understood, after I entered the order, that the convent I entered didn't even care to glance at poor children, and only wished to serve the children of the wealthy. In that convent, they really do treat the people who suffer from poverty in one way, and those who have money in their pockets in a totally different way. Before they become nuns, these women take a vow that they will live in poverty. But that is just a sham. The convent does not know the meaning of poverty. When the bell rang, there was a meal. And was it just rice that we were served? There was always food of all kinds. By turns, at each meal there was meat, fish, or eggs. There was always an abundance of fruit and a variety of vegetables. There was a comfortable room to live in. Each room had a bedstead, a fan, table and chair, and drinking water. The school was close by the convent. You could reach it in a few paces, and run home as you chose. No need to catch a bus, be pushed and shoved among crowds, and arrive home breathless from all the rush. At 10 in the morning there was coffee and snacks. At 12, a hot meal. Once again tea and snacks at 4 in the afternoon, and a hot meal at 7. Yes, there was every comfort and convenience there. One could have stayed there comfortably, with enough to eat, clothes to wear, and the chance to travel to different places. But I began to think, soon after I entered the convent, gee, is this all there is to the life of renunciation? Is there an understanding of poverty here? The school was full of children from wealthy families. The nuns from the convent matched their attitude and behavior to the power and prestige of those families. The more I watched this, the more frustrated I felt. My mind was disturbed. My conscience was battered and bruised. At last I asked myself, is this the life for me? I left the convent and went home, utterly weary and dispirited. Although I went away home with a certain amount of bravado, it turned out to be difficult enough. I had lost the job that I had. I had no money at all. I didn't even have enough clothes to wear. My mind was full of anguish. But more than anything else, it was as if everything had changed when I came out. As if I had been blindfolded and then turned out into a forest, I struggled to find my way. And though they took me back at home, I felt uncertain and confused. Convent life had changed me fundamentally. I who had once been bold had become an extremely timid person, fearful of everything, ready to burst into tears, and without any strength. I felt orphaned, as if I had no family. I felt too shy even to communicate with people in a normal way. Sometimes I even thought to myself that it would be better to be dead and gone rather than carry on living like this. Today I am like a mongrel dog, wandering about without a permanent job, nor a regular means to find clothes, food, and a safe place to live. I share the same difficulties and struggles that all Dalit poor experience. I share to some extent the poverty of the Dalits who toil far more painfully through fierce heat and beating rain, yet live out their lives in their huts with nothing but gruel and water. Those who labor are the poorest of poor Dalits. But those who reap the rewards are the wealthy, the upper castes. This continues to happen in my village to this day. Life is difficult if you happen to be poor, even though you are born into the upper castes. When this is the case, the condition of those who are born into the pariah community, as the poorest of the poor, struggling for daily survival, doesn't need spelling out. Such people have just enough time, if they wake up well before cockcrow, to sweep their front yard, collect water, swallow some gruel if possible, and rush off to work as best as they can. In the midst of all this, how can they be expected to look after their children and make sure they go to school? In the face of such poverty, the girl children cannot see the sense in schooling, and stay at home, collecting firewood, looking after the house, caring for the babies, and doing household chores. As soon as the boys have picked up a smattering of learning, they wander off to look after the goats and the cattle. If you look at our streets, they are full of small children, their noses streaming, without even a scrap of clothing, rolling about and playing in the mud and mire, indistinguishable from puppies and piglets. But the wealthy live off the labor of the poor, like leeches, and their children eat well and fatten, they wear fine clothes, attend good schools, take up high positions and earn more and more money. It seems that our society is divided into those who toil, and those who sit down and feast. They have separated out those whom they consider unfit to touch. Push them to one side and marginalize them, they make them work like machines yet abuse them unjustly, never allowing them to make any progress. I don't know when such atrocities will ever end. Is it likely that he who finds his comfort by exploiting us will ever change, or ever allow the system to change? And there are many who patiently accept and endure their hard lives, consoling themselves that this was the destiny given them, that they cannot see a way to change the caste they were born into, nor the poverty that is part of that caste, nor indeed the humiliation of it all. On the other hand, there are a few others who know that this is neither our fate nor our destiny, and who are making efforts to challenge these atrocities. But you see, our mental firmness doesn't match the influence and authority that money power wields. For how many days can one fight in the name of justice and strength when one is hungry and thirsty? Even for a daily meal, we have to depend on someone else. We dance to someone else's tune, even for a serving of rice. And of course, knowing this fully well, the wealthy control and crush Dalits. You see this attitude not only among the common people. In the society about us. Far worse is the attitude within our own church. They have made use of Dalits who are immersed in ignorance as their capital, set up a big business, and only profited their own castes. In the churches, Dalits are the most in numbers alone. In everything else, they are the least. It is only the upper caste Christians who enjoy the benefits and comforts of the church. Even amongst the priests and nuns, it is the upper castes who hold all the high positions, show off their authority, and throw their weight about. And if Dalits become priests or nuns, they are pushed aside and marginalized first of all, before the rest go about their business. It is because of this that even though Dalits like me might wish to take up the path of renunciation, we find there is no place for us there. 7.